Welcome to Finding Home Healing. I'm your host, Sadie. I believe you were born with a light that guides you to your higher self and most passionate life. But for many of us, it's been extinguished or lost. My mission is to help you find your way back home to that light so that you can love deeper, live in your power, and truly thrive. For those lost or lonely souls, welcome home. I'm going to venture to guess that you've been hurt in your life at some point by someone. Is that true? Think back to that time right now, a specific time with a person or a group of people or a time when you felt hurt. How did you deal with it? How did you cope? What did you do about it? My guess is also that if you are thinking about an event or a situation or a person or group of people right now that hurt you, that there's a part of you that is still holding on to that hurt. How they maybe wronged you. How what they did deeply impacted you. How what they did was wrong. How wronged you felt. How torn up your heart was, or maybe still is. Does that feel true? Depending on your personality, your temperament, how you were raised, what you were taught, you may have handled that situation like how a lot of people do, by just saying, just give it time. Because time heals all wounds, right? Wrong. Time does not heal all wounds. It does not heal hurt in most cases. It does not heal resentment. It does not heal grudges, betrayal, wrongdoing. Time doesn't heal those things. Time may heal physical wounds. Time obviously heals cuts and scrapes and scratches. Our bodies are doing the process for us so that we don't have to. But time is not always healing emotional wounds. Sometimes it can ease the pain of an emotional wound, but it's not actually healing it. Unless your religion or your parents, your community, or some type of mentor along your path has taught you how to heal from those things, then you probably have never known how, and you still don't to this day. What we try to do is we try to forget about it. If you're anything like me, that's kind of the message that I received. We try to just move on from it. But what we're really doing when we try to do those things is that we're numbing ourselves. We're running away, we're hiding from it, we're avoiding it, or we're distracting ourselves, which I think a lot of you can agree that that's really easy to do in our day and age. And while that may work temporarily as a band-aid in the short term, it is not actually healing the problem. The more and more that these kinds of things happen throughout your life, the more and more that they accumulate, by the time you know it, your light's out. It's extinguished, it's lost. Your joy has been stolen. Your heart has been crushed, tattered and battered and beaten up. Your heart's been broken. Whether you actually really know it or not, maybe even under just minor offenses or minor situations that you just try to let roll off your back. Those things are deeply impacting you, whether you like to admit it or know it or not. You begin to not trust people as easily. And you surely don't trust yourself. You don't open up as much to people. You don't take risks. And you say no to adventure. Well, you might say yes to adventure, but then you'll probably feel terrified and so disconnected from yourself that you can't even enjoy it anyway. And you're skeptical of everyone and everything around you. There's this feeling like you're always like walking on eggshells, like someone's going to hurt me, or someone's going to wrong me, or I'm not ever safe, or if I do something, then this will happen. There's so many of those if-then stories. And there's a lot of unconscious fear that we harbor and that unconscious hurt that, again, if we're trying to just shove it under the rug and not deal with it, it starts to wreak havoc on our mind, our brains, and our bodies. And that's not okay. I had a client like this once. She was so sweet. But she harbored so much pain and hurt and bitterness and resentment and betrayal and being wronged that she lost connection with her heart and her light and herself. She had gone through a couple really painful breakups by this time in her life. She had some very less than loving memories with her parents and some peers that burned imprints on her heart and her soul and her unconscious mind in childhood. She had people in her circle treat her without respect and dignity. And over time, those things really accumulated. They built up inside of her. And to the untrained eye and to everyone else around, she looked happy and she was so kind and loving. But to somebody like me, I could see straight through to her core, and I could see the sorrow that she was carrying. It makes me want to cry when I think about it, because I can see the sorrow that people carry. And it's really, really sad that so many people are walking through their life on this planet with so much hurt and so much pain that they don't know what to do with. And being so empathic, I can feel that in people. I can feel their sorrow and their pain and how much hurt they've had. I can deeply relate to it because I've had it myself. And it's really sad that so many of us don't know what to do with that. And it just gets stuck inside of us. It's lodged in our body, in our mind, in our soul imprint. And we're not doing anything about it. No one's talking about it. No one's teaching people how to handle those situations. That's an extreme statement. There are a lot of people who are doing that, and I'm one of them, myself included. My teachers are also people who are doing that. But I mean to say that in an extreme statement, that no one's doing it because it feels so unimportant to people, which makes zero sense to me. I do not understand why this is not a priority for people. And why this doesn't seem important to be on the headlines of news. Oh my God, some woman healed from her resentment and her hurt. Why is that not more celebrated and more of a big deal in our culture? That's significant. That's amazing. When somebody frees themselves of their pain, or when somebody's helping someone else free themselves of their pain and their suffering, and that they're not walking through life with all this heaviness and this burning, ripping, gripping feeling in their heart and in their nervous system, why is that not more celebrated? And why is it not more prioritized to actually learn how to do this and what to do to resolve those things and to get you back into a state of peace and groundedness and harmony with the world, yourself, and others? It just doesn't make any sense to me. So that's why we're talking about this today. I want to stop that. I want to be the interrupt to that process, that we're not talking about it, we're not prioritizing it. That ends today. The ancient Hawaiians understood this concept, something so deeply profound, that I think would be very wise of us to understand and follow. And I'm going to teach that to you today, and how important it is, why it's so important, what it does for you, how it can benefit you, and how to actually do it. We're going to do an actual exercise today in this episode at the end, so that you can really be free of your pain. You can let go of the hurt, bitterness, resentment, the unforgiveness, all of the burdens, the heaviness, the sorrow that you carry in your body. You don't need to be holding on to it day in and day out, and you don't have to live by those rules of well, just let time pass and it'll get better. That just doesn't work. In some cases, it can. I don't want to be so extreme. But in most cases, it just doesn't work. You can experience yourself after doing a process like this, like how you've always dreamed of, feeling peaceful and calm, centered and balanced. Like I was saying, in harmony with the world, with others, and especially with yourself. You can feel less mentally chaotic, more emotionally organized, less fatigued, more centered and harmonious inside your own body. Now, keep in mind, what I'm about to teach you is not just for severe cases of hurt and betrayal. I opened with that because That's how I want to introduce this concept to you, because I know so many of us, if not all of us, have at least had some hurt in our life or somebody who we feel has wronged us and that we might be holding on to. And it might not even be somebody, maybe it's something. If you listen to my religious survivor episode, I had a lot of hurt from God because I had so much pain from the people who were supposedly representing God. So you can go listen to that whole story. But it doesn't necessarily have to be someone. It can also be something or some place. Maybe you had a really traumatic or terrifying experience in a certain location, and you need to make harmony and make peace with that location. Like maybe you're afraid to go back to it. I gave this example, I think, in another episode, or I had thought about it or dreamed of it. I don't remember. But if somebody that you know or loved was, let's just say, was mauled by a bear in the mountains, you might not have a lot of harmony and peace with the mountain because you might be pretty upset at it, or with bears in general, right? And you might not ever want to go there ever again. You might be afraid of it. Maybe you're scared of the forest or of going on any hikes or going anywhere. I don't want to get too much on a tangent here, but that's going to be really hindering to your life in some ways. The fears that we have, the blockages, the obstacles that we have, the pain and the hurt that we harbor and carry in our heart and that we carry in our body is really damaging to us. Like I was saying earlier, to our joy, to our peace, to our fun, to our heart. We do not need to hold on to all of those things anymore. There is a way to let them go and to heal them for good. Okay, anecdotally, what we're going to do is really, really helpful for breakups or for other types of relationship completions. It's helpful for highly sensitive people and empaths who get connected to literally everything and everyone every day, all around them. And I like to make the analogy that it's like they're picking up everyone's trash, like as if they were a trash truck. And by the end of the day, they've just accumulated all of this garbage and all this trash that's not even theirs. And if they're not letting go of it and actually consciously making the effort to clear it and disconnect and let all of that trash go and all those people that they were connected to, then it will just keep accumulating in them and eventually make them sick. These can even be people that are close to you, like your spouse, your family, your children, your neighbors, your boss, your colleagues, your clients. It doesn't matter who they are. Everyone is walking through life, even if you're not a highly sensitive person or empath. Everyone is walking through life having connections to everything and everyone. And I'm going to explain more about that in a minute when I talk about cords of connection, if you've heard of that before. But this is anecdotally also helpful if you are ever feeling buried or trapped or suffocating for whatever reason. If you feel overly stressed, overwhelmed, anxious, fatigued, chaotic, or just imbalanced or out of harmony with yourself, with your mind, with your body, with other people. If you can't stop ruminating, I've had a lot of clients who have had that issue. Or if you feel like somebody's wronged you. If you've had conflict with someone and they said something really hurtful and you're now harboring resentment towards them. This happens a lot in relationships, and I work with people and I coach people to allow them to express what's really real and true for them, because conflict is very healthy. And if there's a moment where one person is expressing something maybe a little bit on the cutting edge, and I mean like they're saying something that's very cutting, then the other person who's receiving that might need to do this process that we're talking about today in order to resolve that, to come back into harmony with that person. Cool, are we on the same page? I say cool a lot with a question mark, but I want to make sure that we're on the same page. In the case of trauma and abuse, I really want to encourage you to work with a skilled professional to help you with that, because as much as we can heal on our own and by ourselves, the truth is our own two legs can only get us so far. And somebody like me or a professional that you trust, they can really help you heal in ways that you wouldn't necessarily be capable of on your own. And I'm also going to explain this a little bit later on down the road in this episode, that when I work with somebody, I've said this before in other episodes, like I can plug into somebody energetically and I can feel what they're feeling. I can help them express themselves in ways that they've maybe never been able to before. And I can help get down to like the nitty gritty of what's really going on and say things and help them feel things that they just might not have ever been able to on their own. So if that's the case for you, head on over to findinghomehealing.com and just schedule an intro consult with me there. I would be happy to be a healing guide for you. Again, this is in the case of like trauma and abuse, if they're really, really deep instances and occurrences. So what is this thing that I said that Hawaiians understood that I keep hyping up so much? Oh, I love that. It's this basic principle. When something or someone is out of harmony, it must be brought back into harmony. Pono in the Hawaiian language means to be in harmony and at peace with the world, others, and ourselves. Ho'o means to make or to cause. So when you put them together, ho'oponopono means to make right, to make correct, to bring into peace and harmony, to cause coming back into balance and harmony. Even more simply synonymized to English, it's correction or the practice of reconciliation and forgiveness. This is something that the Hawaiians understood, and they practiced it all the time. In fact, even still in today's Hawaiian culture, they teach their young the term pono, balance and being in harmony with the world, others, and oneself. Being pono is such a important part of like the spirit of aloha that it is permeating through all of those people and the culture. In my opinion, that's a big reason why I believe that when we go to Hawaii, we feel like so loved and there's a community. Maybe some people haven't had that experience because like the haoles or the white people, you know, there's some issues there, and I recognize that and I respect that. But in general, Hawaii just represents like love and communion and healing and spirituality. And I really believe like at the pinnacle of a lot of that is this concept of pono, of being in balance and in harmony. And they do these processes in their culture, and they have for hundreds and hundreds of years. I've been trained by literal, actual ancient Hawaiians that have had their lineage passed down to them. They've been doing this for a very long time, and it is what helps keep their communities and their cultures in harmony and in balance. And we, in today's society, we just don't do this. We're not taught this. Some of you may be familiar with the term ho'oponopono, but you probably know the Americanized version of it, where you say, "I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you." And there's nothing wrong with that. I actually do use that sometimes when I'm working with people. It's really powerful and really beautiful. But there's so many aspects to the actual practice that is the raw form of ho'oponopono that leaves out. And that's what I want to teach you today and instruct you on. Not ironically, one of the most famous people on the planet was also a huge proponent of forgiveness. Can you guess who that person was? I bet a lot of you can. His name was Jesus. And I am probably going to have another episode. I say this almost in every episode, but I am such a depth person. I just want to go down every deep rabbit hole. I would like to have another episode to explain like all of my own opinions and my perspectives on the Christian perspective on forgiveness, because I think it's really, really beautiful and powerful and important. And there's a little bit of a gap, in my opinion, in the Christian version and form of forgiveness, because it's not necessarily a practice that people are being taught to use in everyday life and to use in their relationships day in and day out, especially after even just minor incidences or in big incidences. In the Christian world, forgiveness is really, it's been used in more of the terminology of like just Jesus forgiving you for your sins and being able to receive that. But forgiveness in the context of the Hawaiian culture and in Ho'oponopono extends far beyond that. And it's actually a deeply, deeply meaningful and profound practice that we can do to help ourselves and to help others around us. this practice is really intended for you. Why we do this practice in Ho'oponopono is not because we're trying to make right what someone has done to us. We're not trying to condone their behavior or, basically say like, oh, well, you can do that again. That is not what this process is for. Ho'oponopono is not for the intention of condoning behaviors, making them right, making them okay, or saying that they can happen anymore ever again. It's really intended for you to be able to undo and unravel all of the pain and hurt that you've been carrying from these instances that people have done, whether knowingly or unknowingly, so that you are not the one that's carrying the pain anymore. And that's what's so fascinating and interesting to me is I took myself as my own case study. I held on to so much bitterness and anger and resentment and hurt and betrayal and mistrust and abuse and all these different things. And at the end of the day, who was I actually really hurting? Myself. By holding on to those things, I'm hurting myself. I thought back before I learned this whole thing that I'm teaching you today, I thought that if I were to hold on to those things, it would give me some sense of righteousness, or it would make it such that I could punish those people in certain ways, which was very manipulative. I thought that if I held on to that pain, that then I would be able to pass that pain back to them almost in like a, I'm going to make this just type of way, like this is unfair and I need to make it fair. And that is such an inappropriate perspective and not, in my opinion, the way that we are meant to live and be as human beings. That's not healthy. It's very toxic and it is not good for us and it's not good for other people. When we hold on to pain and we hold on to unforgiveness and hurt, we're hurting ourselves. That person who originally hurt you is not being hurt by you holding on to it. Maybe they are if you're being a smartass or you're withholding love from them or you're doing things that are actually hurtful to them, like genuinely. But at the end of the day, you're just hurting yourself. And the other fascinating thing is that I've come to find and learn that we hold on to pain because we think it's protecting us. I did that. I held on to so much of my pain for so long because for some reason I convinced myself consciously and unconsciously that my pain was some type of protection. That if I held on to these things, if I always remembered who wronged me and who did what to me and how they did it and what they said, that somehow I'd be protected from that in the future or from that person or from the pain that I experienced from the original event. But what is so crazy is that holding on to that pain is just hurting you more than the pain of the actual initial event. Holding on to that is not helping you in any way, shape, or form. It is a false sense of protection. It's not a real protection. It's really backwards because if you think that holding on to pain or unforgiveness or hurt and not forgiving somebody is actually helping you and protecting you, it's the opposite. It's hurting you. So what you used to think was protecting you is actually hurting you. Do you get that? Are we on the same page about that? Because it is a really profound lesson that I personally learned, and maybe y'all already knew that and you were wise to that, but that was profound for me to learn. And it really opened the door and gave me permission that it's actually helpful to me to forgive. It's helpful to me to let these things go. It's helpful to me to release all the pain and the hurt and the resentment and being wronged and feeling like I was wronged and then holding on to it thinking that I was being justified, that was fair for me to not forgive somebody. It really helped me surrender to the fact that I am not somebody who wants to keep track of all the wrongs that have happened to me. Why? Because then I'm only focusing on all the things people have done to hurt me. And what kind of life is that? And things that I've done to hurt people. If I can't forgive myself, I can't forgive anybody else either. And why would I want a life like that? Why would you want a life like that? Where you're just holding on to this stuff or thinking that as time passes, it's getting better, when in actuality, it's still being harbored and stored inside of you. And it shows up in instances with your spouse or your partner or your kids or at work or in a new relationship or in a breakup, right? This process is really intended to help you release all of that resentment, that buildup of heaviness, of hurt, grudges, misunderstandings, guilt, mistakes, misjudgments, oversight by you or other people, mistreatment and wrongdoings. It's intended to help you release tension and tightness and all of that like mental chaos and anarchy and clutter that just accumulates inside your body so that you can feel more relieved and light and joyful and happy. Thinking about this makes me remember like being in Hawaii when you're just like on the beach and you're carefree and you're in the water and you're under the sun and it's just like this beautiful, amazing experience. Why do you think so many people are drawn to that environment? Because it's embodying these exact sensations, these feelings, these states of being that we so deeply crave and desire as a human being. At the end of the day, the word that I could use to describe it is just ultimately peace. When you've learned to surrender and forgive and let go of all of the trespasses against you, you experience a lot of peace. Like a lot of peace. Okay, so I want to make sure that I'm clear that this process is not intended to condone any of the behaviors or any of the things that have been done to you or that you've potentially done. It is not to make those things right. When I say that Ho'oponopono means to make right, it does not mean that we are making those things that happen to you right. It means that we're bringing you back into harmony with yourself and others and the world. And what that means is like literally letting it go and releasing it. Coming to terms of what you've learned from it and being able to say what you need to say and express what you need to express and letting it go. And I'll repeat this again too. We forgive and we let go of pain and hurtful things that have happened to us so that those bad things that have happened to us or because of us can be let go of, released, resolved, reconciled, no longer causing us the residual hurt and pain. Same idea of what I was talking about before. If we have the pain of the original event, and then we are allowing ourselves or choosing to feel residual pain over and over and over again, then that's compounding the amount of pain and suffering that you feel from one incident. Wouldn't it make more sense if we were to forgive and let go of the original incident, freeing you of the rest of the residual pain and suffering that would maybe repeat on cycle for you over and over and over again? I was actually just reading a book yesterday, and there was a case of a woman who was schizophrenic in the book, and she would have bouts of crazy anxiety in the month of May. And then she would have crazy depression in the month of November. And in the book, they don't necessarily go into why that was happening, but they eventually described how like she was able to release and let go of some of the trauma that happened to her in those months. And that's ultimately what this type of process is also intended to do. If you have, like I said, certain experiences of time or of places or people or groups of people that are causing you to have residual pain and suffering throughout the rest of time, there's something there that you're holding on to that you do not need to be holding on to anymore, that you can give yourself permission to let go of and release, heal that trauma or the abuse or whatever it was, the hurt, the wrongdoing, all the things that we've talked about today already, and come back into that state of peace. Cool? Are we on the same page? I also want to be really clear that Ho'oponopono is not an act that you're doing for others. You're not forgiving somebody so that they're off the hook. You're not letting something go so that you can free them. You're doing it for you. You're letting yourself off the hook. You're freeing yourself. This is all to help you heal, to help your heart come back into wholeness, to recollect all those pieces and fragments of yourself that have either been taken from you or that you've given away willingly or unwillingly, to come back into a state of wholeness and a state of peace. This is all for you, and that's why it's so powerful, because it's an act of self-love. It's an act of self-integration. And the more and more that you do that, the more that you are actually putting that sonar message out into the world, to the universe, into your reality, that you are prioritizing integration, you're prioritizing healing. You want your parts and pieces to come back to you so that you can be whole and peaceful, and you can have a life of joy and with your light turned on and being home with yourself, being connected to yourself, getting to just live out your passion in life. When I finally learned that Ho'oponopono was framed in this way that it's intended to protect me by helping me release things that are hurting me, and that it's actually for myself. It's not for anybody else. And that it doesn't make anything that's happened right or okay, or for it to be allowable to happen in the future. It totally changed my whole perspective. And I started like doing Ho'oponopono all the time, forgiving everybody, all of my trespasses that I've done to people, forgiving myself, letting all that go, healing a lot of my pieces and my fragments, bringing them back to myself. And I continuously felt this like lift of weight off of my body and off of my chest. I would release it, and then I had a whole new layer and level of my true self exposed and my real authentic self available for me to live as or live into. And that's powerful stuff. And I want that for all of you. I also didn't know that Ho'oponopono was something that could be used in a situation that maybe it wasn't somebody who wronged you or that you wronged them, but it's just that you don't want to be connected to them anymore. Like in the instance of, let's say in an ideal world, you have a breakup and it was really peaceful and you both know that it's the right thing to do. You need to move on with your lives and you have no ill will against each other, but you need to disconnect because that relationship has reached its completion cycle. Ho'oponopono is something that you can do to lovingly disconnect from that person emotionally, energetically, and physically in a lot of ways, because as energy trickles down, it starts energetically and then mentally and then emotionally and then physically, right? So when you disconnect it from those top layers, it sinks down into the physical. It can be really helpful in those situations where something is complete and you need to just disconnect from it. My teacher also gave examples that when he would travel around the whole world, he would do Ho'oponopono with the place that he was in and reconnect with the new place that he was in so that his body could actually adjust to the time difference. And him doing that made it such that he never experienced jet lag. And I do that to this day, and I don't experience jet lag. I do Ho'oponopono with the place that I left and the time zone that I left. I cut cords, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. And then I reconnect, I record with the new place that I'm in, and I really allow my body to like ground to the earth in that new location. And then boom, I'm there. That's my present state of being. That's where I'm at. And I don't experience jet lag. It's really powerful. If any of you are traveling a lot or shifting time zones, like it's a really, really powerful practice for that. Okay, so how does Ho'oponopono work then? If this is, all amazing and I've really, really hyped it up now, you're going to be like, okay, this like really better deliver. Ho'oponopono works by very simple concepts of cords of attachment, if you've heard of that concept before. It works in your imagination, which if you know anything about how energy works, because your imagination is the first seed of what reality really is. So even though Ho'oponopono can be done in a closed eye meditation, being guided by somebody or just in your own mind, it is profoundly helpful and effective. Because again, you're getting at it from that top layer of where energy starts. You don't have to do it in the physical. The Hawaiian culture, they did do it in the physical, right? In their village, in their communities, if somebody wronged one another, they would literally have those two people meet face to face, and they'd have the whole community surrounding them, and they do this process that we're going to do in person. I don't advise that you do this in person with people. What you're doing is you're actually in your mind, you're creating a apparition of that person. An apparition is like a copy of them energetically. And what's also interesting, which this may be confusing to some of you or it may be really interesting to some of you, that apparition of that person in your imagination or in your mind is actually the projection of that person from yourself. So you are doing this process with your own self that person represented to you. If you don't follow that, that's totally cool. But the whole point is that you don't have to do this with somebody in actual physical reality. You can. I've done this with my partner multiple times. I've done this with my family. I don't know if I've done it with any of my friends in person, but I've definitely done it in my imagination with my friends and obviously other people from my past. So you can do it in person if both people are on the same page. This is something that I like to train and coach couples on doing because it's really powerful. But you don't have to. So this is all it's in your mind's eye. It's guided through your imagination and through your intent. I think that's another thing that we really need to make sure that we're clear on, that it's your intent that really does anything in this world. Even though, yes, you need action, you need to actually physically do things in this world, it's your intent that means the most. So whatever you intend to do with your imagination or with your guided visualizations, that's what's going to happen. And I can't even give you enough stories about how powerful and profoundly impactful this exercise alone helps people heal from their entire childhood, from their abuse and trauma with parents and siblings and peers and bosses and coworkers and spouses and children and all those different things. It is so profoundly helpful. Okay, so what are cords? Cords of attachment, cords of connection. You're going to hear me refer to cords a lot. Think of cords like strings. When you walk around or you interact with the world every single day, you get up in the morning and boom, you are already cording with everything. You're cording with your bed, you're cording with your coffee or your tea, you're cording with your animals, your kids, your spouse, your phone. Oh my gosh, don't even get me started. When you get on social media, you're immediately cording with like millions of people. You might not know it or be aware of it, but energetically, you're getting connected into this web. So think of cords of attachment like a web or strings that are connecting everybody to everything at every point in time. They're invisible to the naked eye, technically, but people who can see energy can see cords. I can see cords, not as well as some people can, but I still can. Cords can be connected to any part of your body. They can come out of your head. A lot of times they're coming from energy centers. So like your crown chakra, your third eye, your throat, your heart, your solar plexus, sacral, root. A lot of times cords are connecting through those energy centers. So you can think about it like the cords are coming out of your head, or they're coming out of your chest heart area, they're coming out of your stomach, or out of like your root, the base of your pelvis, your reproductive area. Sometimes people are connecting through their feet or their legs, or even part of their energy centers that are above their physical body and below their physical body. So you don't necessarily have to know where you're corded at, but if you feel tightness or tension or heaviness in any specific area of your body, more likely than not, you're probably having a lot of cords there, or that's how you're cording with things. If you're more of like a heart-led person, like a really sensitive, kind, loving empath, you're probably cording a lot with your heart area. If you're more of like a mental process person or in your head a lot, you're probably cording with your head most of the time. If you're like a highly sexual person, you're probably cording with your lower abdominal area, right? So it doesn't matter who you are, what you do, anything about your personality or your soul or your spirit or anything. Everybody is cording all the time. That is a like universal law and principle. Okay, so what I want you to do is begin to form what we call an internal representation of what cords are to you. An internal representation is essentially a way that you store data in your brain. You can store this visually, auditorily, kinesthetically, like through sensation or feeling, or auditory digitally, which would be more like your intuitive knowing or your sixth sense. So I want you to imagine, what do you experience when you think of cords of connection and attachment, now that I've explained it a little bit more? Do you see visually in your mind's eye like ropes or strings or a spider web or something else that's connecting you to everything? Like when you think about your partner or an animal or a pet or a child, a niece, nephew, anything, like choose somebody important to you in your life. Think about your connection to them. And what do you experience with that connection? Do you see a cord, a string, a rope of some kind? Do you feel a sensation in your body? Do you hear their voice in your head? Or do you just have an intuitive knowing that you are connected to them through some means? What is it for you that is your internal representation of cords? That's important because you're going to be using that in our process. And your internal representation of cords can change. How you perceive or experience your connection to everything and everyone, it doesn't have to be stagnant or remain the same. For me, I see these like little strings or filaments of light that are like a physical kind of string, or like almost like a guitar string sort of, that can be plucked. If you've ever seen, I just watched this recently, Inside Out 2, there's a scene where they pluck these different like belief cords if you will. And that's kind of like how I envision it and how I have for a long time. But I cord a lot with my heart. So I imagine, and my gut. So I imagine like cords coming out of my heart and my gut a lot. Anyway, I digress. So come up with your internal representation. Cutting cords is what we do to disconnect from people, places, and things, and to ultimately heal. Because if you think about it, a cord has two end users, right? Like a string has two end users in order to hold it up. So you are at one end and another person, place, or thing is at the other end. And in order for you to disconnect that connection, we have to cut the cord. But in order for us to do that, we have to do a couple steps first. We need to tell that person, place, or thing exactly how we feel, exactly what is really going on in our world from the event or from the experience, and holding nothing back. This is why in a lot of ways it's a lot easier and really valuable to do this just in your mind's eye, because sometimes it's really hard to express to a person's face like everything that you feel. That's really raw and unfiltered. And sometimes that can cause more hurt and pain. But that's necessary for this whole process. You have to be as honest and raw and vulnerable, and sometimes even maybe you have to like curse. Maybe you need to like get angry and just really say how you're really feeling. That is a really important part of this process in order for you to become pono, to become in harmony and in balance. Also part of this process is stating, I forgive you. Please forgive me too. When you say, please forgive me too, it is not because you're admitting fault or because that you think that if somebody wronged you, that you did something wrong to deserve it, or that you were being punished or anything like that. The statement of I forgive you, please forgive me too, is really this like passing back and forth of you forgiving yourself. I forgive you, please forgive me too. That apparition of that person, you're requesting forgiveness from them, which is really asking it of yourself to forgive yourself for holding on to this hurt and this trespass of this person. So it's really this exchange back and forth of the forgiveness and of letting it go, of like surrendering to it, of really understanding that most of the time hurt people. It is due to their ignorance or misunderstanding or wrongdoings that were mistakes, or that maybe they didn't mean, or they didn't mean to cause you hurt. In some cases, maybe they did, but forgiveness is still necessary, again, like I was mentioning earlier, to help you, not to get them off the hook. Okay, this is all about you. You have to remember and come back to that. That ho'oponopono is not for anybody else but you. You are not saying, I forgive you, please forgive me too, because you are admitting that you did something wrong. It's really this overarching like relief of your proclaiming that you're letting it all go, that you're forgiving yourself, you're asking for forgiveness, and you're forgiving them. Okay? Then in part of the process, you're going to be imagining a blade of white light floating down and cutting those cords. And what happens is, if you can imagine those cords are being cut, the ends of those cords go back to that other person, place, or thing, and your end of the cord comes back to you. Intending to mean that like the part of you that was either being given or that had been taken from that person, place, or thing is coming back to you. That you're not sharing that part of yourself anymore. You're bringing it all the way back into you. You're integrating it back into your wholeness of yourself. You're wrapping it, pulling it back in, and bringing it back home. You're claiming it. You're owning it. Again, you're bringing all those pieces back to yourself, bringing it back home to yourself. And then in the process, you imagine that that person, place, or thing dissolves and disappears. Okay? There are many different versions of this process, and when I lead somebody through this, like in a one-on-one healing session, I'm able to really connect to them, tap into them, plug into them, and when we're at the process of them like really truthfully and rawly expressing themselves, I can often help them express themselves in ways that they maybe wouldn't have been able to themselves. So if you are doing this process on your own, I would just really like to remind you and invite you to be as raw and expressive as you possibly can. Be as open and as honest with the apparition of that person in your mind that you can, to really get everything out. Okay, the purpose and the process of this is to like empty out your trash can. It's another form of inner releasing if you listen to that episode. It's getting things out of you. It's taking out your trash. Okay? Be as candid and open, forthright, raw, and real as possible, as the most possible that you can be. The more fully you can allow yourself to express and be open, the better your results will be. And because I'm a little bit limited in this format, I'm going to be leading you through more of like a general Ho'oponopono type of cord cutting process. If you are wanting more specific things, like with a specific person or a specific event or a place, or like you're just wanting more of that like one-on-one healing guidance, specific events, things like that, even past partners, trauma, childhood, all that good stuff, schedule an intro consult with me at findinghomehealing.com, and I would be happy to lead you through this process. Okay, finally, before we get into the actual process, these are some tips on how to get the best results. 1, trust yourself as much as possible. 2, be open and curious. If you're giving yourself negative reinforcement and getting stuck in your head, like, I can't do this, this isn't working, oh my gosh, I'm distracted, why am I doing this? This isn't actually going to do what she says it's going to do. Then you're going to be focused on all the doubt and all the negativity of how it's not working. And of course, it's not going to work for you. Okay? You got to take control of your mind and be open. Know that those thoughts are not helping, and that you won't be giving yourself the full opportunity to actually experience its healing benefits. Okay? So stay open, be curious. Breathe deeply throughout the process and often. Even when I tell you to return to your normal breathing, there might be times where you need to breathe as a physical expression of a release. So please take all the deep breaths that you need and want to. I'm going to hound this in again. When it comes time to, please fully express yourself in the most raw and honest way that you possibly can. That will help you get the energy and emotion out of your body that's stuck. And lastly, what is that? Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Last, number 5. Let go of worrying about if you're doing it right. There is no right or wrong way to do this. There really isn't. So if you're worried about being perfect or thinking that you're not doing it right and then it's not going to work, like, just let all that go. You cannot do it wrong. Every time that you do this, something positive and beneficial will come of it. Okay? Whatever happens, happens. Let that be okay. Okay, now when to use it, I'd like you to prioritize this every night before you go to bed. Include it in your morning routine. Just have it be like a quick thing that you learn to do in your brain where you're like, oh, I need to do my Ho'oponopono. And you imagine, the process. I'm going to lead you through it so you'll know, but you imagine the whole thing and then you just do it really quick and then boom, you're done. You can go to bed. It's a really great way to ensure that you're going to have really peaceful sleep and have a really great day the next day. For one-off instances, I recommend using it either during or after conflict with somebody. If you're having a hard time letting go of a grievance, if you're feeling disconnected from yourself, like cloudy, murky, or chaotic, if you've physically been around a lot of people or had people in your space that kind of gave you a bad feeling, that's a really appropriate time to use this process. Okay, how are we feeling? Are you ready? Are you ready for the process? I feel excited. I needed to get through all of that. It's really, really important. The good thing now is though that once you've listened to this episode, all you need to do is fast forward to this part of the episode in order to do this process. You don't have to listen to the whole thing over and over again. So you can just skip right ahead to this part and we can go right into the process. Cool? Okay, we're going to begin. Go ahead and get into a comfortable position. Please don't do this if you're driving or operating heavy machinery. Got to give those disclaimers. Make sure that you are in a comfortable, relaxed environment where you can be fully present, where people or things are not going to be pulling at you for your attention, where you can just be. You can even do this on a walk. You don't have to be sitting still, but just make sure that your mind is able to relax and you can close your eyes ideally. So as you close your eyes, begin to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose and out your mouth. In through your nose, out through your mouth. in through your nose, out your mouth. Keep going with this breathing and imagine that all the tightness and tension in your shoulders, in your brain, your body begins to melt like butter. That you sink down into being present with your body. You've probably been in your head listening to this episode, or perhaps at certain parts of your day before coming to this process. So just allow yourself to relax. Now what I'd like for you to do is, in your mind's eye, imagine that there is a stage below you and in front of you. This stage is an area we are going to invite people out onto. Now I'd like you to imagine a source of infinite love and healing from above your head. And like liquid light, allow that infinite source of love and healing to flow over you, over your whole body, flowing down inside of you, all the way down from your top to your bottom, down to your feet, and filling you all the way up from toe to head, healing you all the way up with this infinite love and healing source. As you notice it filling you up from toe to head, allow it to come out of your body and coat the surroundings of your body. Now go ahead and just ask your unconscious mind, trust your unconscious mind, to pull out anybody and everybody or anything that you are corded to and connected to. Invite them out onto the stage. Maybe there's just a few, maybe there's many. These don't have to be people that wronged you or that hurt you. These could just be people that you've been connected to throughout the day. Or maybe you see people show up that have wronged you and hurt you. What I'd like for you to do is imagine that love and healing energy inside of your body begins to pour out of your heart onto the stage, filling all of these people up from toe to head, healing them all the way up. And when they've healed all the way up, go ahead and notice if there's anybody that you would need to speak to share your true and raw feelings to them before getting ready to let go and forgive or disconnect. Pull anybody forward that you need to have a one-on-one conversation with now. Go ahead and choose one or multiple people to say anything and everything you need to say to them right now. I'll give you a couple moments to do so. Good. Go ahead and wrap up with that person or those people. If you need more time here, just go ahead and pause this recording. I'd like you to express yourself until you feel pono with that person. Get anything and everything out that you need to say until you feel in harmony with that person, until you feel fully expressed. Do that as long as it takes to become pono. If you're having a hard time becoming pono, there might be some more emotions or energy or pain that you need further resolution with. If that is the case, please consult a professional to help with that process. If you're feeling pono now, more in harmony and more balanced, what I'd like for you to say out loud now to this person or these people: I forgive you. Please forgive me too. Thank you. And I love you. I forgive you. Please forgive me too. Give the gift of forgiveness from your heart. Allow it to pour out of your heart like that infinite love and healing that you did earlier. And allow it to flow in and out of those people or person on the stage. I forgive you. Please forgive me too. I'm going to do a little chant to help with this process of being pono. No ho ana ke akua ke na hele hele. Iala ye ke ki o huo hue kaua koko. O na kinu malu I kalani. Malu e ho e ho ulu mai ana o kana I kanu kahu. O mako noa. Ua ikea. Excellent. Now go ahead and notice those cords of connection, cords of attachment, and gather them up around your belly button navel area as if you were gathering them up like a ponytail. And imagine a blade of white light floating down from above your head, gently cutting all of those cords, allowing the ends of the cords to return to the other person or people, and your end of the cord to return to you. Bringing all of those pieces back home to yourself and allowing them to come back home and settle into your body. Take a big deep breath and let it go. Now imagine any and all of those people to fade off of the stage, and noticing that you've come back to yourself feeling pono. Thank yourself for going through this process. You have now done ho'oponopono. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. Good, you can come back to the space. Bring your awareness back into your body, into your toes and your fingers. As you open your eyes, come back here and now. Break your state. And test by checking in on the negative emotions that you feel. Are they still present or have they disappeared now? Is the hurt, the resentment, the anger, the unforgiveness, the wrongdoing, is it changed at all? Is it different? If any negative emotions still exist, then go ahead and repeat this process, the Ho'oponopono process, until all the negative emotions have disappeared. Keep in mind that if you worked on a primary or a current relationship, you have the ability to re-assimilate a connection to that person. You do not have to fade them off the stage and make them disappear. You can imagine forming a new connection with them that you would like to have with them. And I also want to remind you, as always, thank yourself, thank your higher self, thank your unconscious mind for a successful Ho'oponopono session, and for truly and genuinely doing this out of love for yourself. All right, you now have Ho'oponopono as a tool for you to use anytime, anywhere that you would like to or need to. We have gone over a lot of stuff and hope it's all been very supportive. So what we've gone over today is what Ho'oponopono is, why it's so important, how to do it, what it all means, where it comes from, all the good stuff. So I'm hoping that you now have a lot of empowerment to the what, the why, and the how, checking all those boxes, and that you can now use this recording on this episode whenever you want, however you need. It is all up to you. I pray that this has been very empowering and healing and helpful for you. If you love this episode and or maybe others that you've listened to, please leave a review wherever you're listening to this. Share it with somebody that you think it could help. That's the biggest way you can help me help even more people like us. And if you want one-on-one support, feel free to go to findinghomehealing.com and schedule an intro session with me there. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and we'll see you in the next one.